Hey everyone, my name is Wayne. I decided to challenge myself into a 3-week mini project with a few spare hours a day to convert Summoner's Rift from League of Legends into a realistic one. The goal here was to maintain the level design of Summoner's Rift, but completely change it from stylized to realistic. This also needed to be visually appealing from both top-down as well as first person. I tried my best to keep the atmosphere of the Rift with the same type of foliage you'd see from League of Legends. I believe converting stylized visuals into realistic ones is a great way to hone your skills. Since stylization tends to be simplistic, you have to add details which were previously not there. This will force you to add upon the initial design. I'll try to show off some of the iterations I went through, as well as some of the tools and ideas I had when making this version of Summoner's Rift. If you enjoyed what you've seen thus far and would like to support my indie title's development, consider pledging to my Patreon. I'm currently developing a game called Harmon that'll have you puzzle solving with only 7 days to save all life in the universe. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated to help me continue projects like these, as well as my own indie game. Now let's get back to Summoner's Rift. So the realistic Summoner's Rift was an idea that popped into my head while playing League of Legends. The carefully constructed stylized visuals and level to focus solely on the gameplay rather than fancy visuals was an enticing idea to pursue into a realistic environment. In level design, you'll want to start off by doing a process called grayboxing. Grayboxing is a process of quickly iterating your level's gameplay flow with simplistic shapes to get a feel for it without making any major commitments. League of Legends' simplistic level flow is pretty easily understood just by looking from mid lane, bot lane, to jungle and so on. It flows on without any hard corners. I decided to block out the simple shapes of the Rift and bring it into Unreal Engine 4 to build on top of that. The map keeps the player engaged in the space that they're in, making sure gameplay is the focal point. An example of this is just the scale of everything. The trees, the turrets compared to champions and minions are all abnormal sizes. This is a way to break down what's interactive and what's just scenery by first glance. This was the challenge I wanted to take, to keep the gameplay flow of the map while converting it entirely into a realistic environment. I gave myself a time limit of 20 minutes to block everything out from a high-risk screenshot of Summoner's Rift. Just having this simple blockout, even just doing a fixed camera angle environment, will really help you reduce on wasting time in the future. From there, I started sculpting out the paths and the river into the landscape. I made sure to use a custom alpha brush to break up any hard transitions between the grass and the dirt. You can easily make your own custom alpha brushes with Quixel Mixer. Just increase the displacement for any of the material, add a puddle to output a black and white roughness map, then you can just clean up the edges in Photoshop and there's your custom brush. With the recent acquirement of Quixel by Epic Games, making high quality environments is completely free while using Unreal Engine 4. So if you're ever interested in game development or just making environments like this, now is the best time to jump in. I grabbed some rocks which were to be the major modular assets to build Summoner's Rift. Modular assets are basically just Lego blocks that can fit together in many ways to reuse it as much as possible. Then I started building up little areas of the map to get an idea how the finished scene might look like. I was quite pleased with how well things pieced together. There's quite a few tweaks done to achieve this, which I will go over. I went on to place the bushes and rocks for mid, Baron, and Dragon Pit since they are the most unique areas of the map. From afar, you can tell that the bushes as well as the grass don't seem to fit well together with the environment. Adjusting the colors, the subsurface scattering, and the specularity help reduce the janky effect. I went on to complete the majority of the rock placement, avoiding detailing so I can make major adjustments if needed. What was also important was scouting the map, find any areas that I wanted to detail further to become my hero shots. To further cut down on the repetitive look of the rocks, I modified the Quixel directional blend material to allow me to add additional options. I also avoided triplanar projection due to the large increase of shader complexity it would cause. For the detail I wanted in this scene, I needed to perform as best as possible for my PC. Having a bad PC can work to your benefit though, as it would force you to optimize your game as much as possible. Since I don't use triplanar projection, I just went on to apply the moss material onto the mesh's untouched UVs. The low amount of UV islands on the Quixel Megascan assets are a plus, since you can just scale the directional Z-axis material with the mesh's UV and it'll still look amazing. I can rotate it around and it'll apply on top of the mesh and still look like it's using triplanar projection. I use this on all my rocks, even if it's just some detailing. I modified the Quixel directional blend material and made it desaturate the albedo, then recolorize it with whatever color I choose from the material instance. This will let you colorize all the static mesh and make them look more uniform, even if the albedo colors are different. I then started adding trees. League of Legends uses a stylistic fir tree for the entirety of the rift, so I only needed one. I can give them variety by rotating them around, scaling them, and tilting them. Tilting them away from the path gives an unobstructed view of what is important, because the entirety of the scene needed to work from multiple angles. The rest of the scene was just detailing by placing Megascan assets, creating custom textures, custom trees, and creating additional tools to speed up the process. One of the major tools I created was called Mass LOD. It allowed me to quickly create LODs for any amount of meshes I wanted, and to fine-tune the triangle count and screen sizes more than LOD groups could ever do. I also created a more powerful spline mesh tool, with the ability to offset the spline multiple ways to either bring the meshes closer together or push them farther apart, or simply just offsetting the entire spline to break up the repetitive look. So I added the ability to rotate the spline points to bend the mesh. With this, I could modify Quixel assets and could curve them in the editor without ever needing to jump into Maya. I made a few textures using Quixel Mixer, such as the pathing you see here. By turning a snowy path into a muddy, dry dirt path, I was able to create a believable looking busy dirt road. Then I just laid that down with my spline mesh tool, curving in multiple areas to avoid looking too straight. Making it look like people traveling from multiple ways was really important to the scene. The last thing was lighting. I did a ton of iterations, taking suggestions from the Quixel Discord group. At first, I had it a really dark scene. Then I modified it to a little bit brighter, to the more sunset look you see now. Once I got the lighting to feel right, I went on to adding fill lights. Fill lights are basically a way to paint lighting into places you'd want, sort of like a global illumination, but you have a lot more control of it. I turned off the cast shadows so I could place as many as I'd like without any performance costs. I used plenty of rectangular spotlights to light up the paths below, and to avoid lighting anything above. From there I used a bunch of soft yellow point lights to paint in dark areas, near where the directional light touches. With the low cost of lighting since I turned off cast shadows, the amount of control I have by placing the lights where I'd like them to be makes it probably the best way to fake global illumination. But there is also a gameplay reasoning. Keeping the upper part of the map dark, where the trees are, and the lower part brighter is a good way to draw your eyes to the gameplay areas. It gives you the sense of what you should be paying attention to, and what isn't important. And that's Realistic Summoner's Rift. If you wish to help me out so I can work full time on projects like these, as well as my game Harmony, consider visiting my Patreon. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoyed this version of Summoner's Rift. Later.